Welcome to Honest Whispers Review. On this video, I'll be reviewing a Michiru Saotome Gashapon figure from CM's Dynamic Heroine collection line. Not many of you would recognize her, but she's the leading female protagonist from an old school anime series called Getter Robo. And Getter Robo was created by Go Nagai. Go Nagai also created series like Mazinger Z, UFO, Grandizer, and even Cutie Honey. And as you can see in this line consists of only characters, female protagonists from his Super Chogokin series. For example, Yumi Sayaka from Mazinger, and on the very right, Grace Maria Fried from UFO Grandizer. I don't know exactly when this came out, but I remember buying it around 2010 at a local anime shop called Anime King here in Southern California. And I'm going to go over 5 different categories to review this. The first category is design, which basically covers the concept and the pose. And as you can see, this has a very unique pose and concept. Initially when I saw this, I didn't know what she was sitting on. I thought it was some kind of ledge, and then a few seconds later I realized, oh okay, it's the finger of Getter Robo, which I thought that was a brilliant concept. Now I can't tell if it's a repair robot just because you could see parts of the skeleton, and that should be where the palm is. But it's possible they just wanted to fade out that way, and it could be she's, the finger's still attached to the palm itself, and that's just kind of like holding her up high in the air. Which is also a cool concept because she's kind of off the ground. And unlike the other characters who might be standing or kneeling and maybe kind of on their toes, usually they use like a plastic brace, something like that, and then it'll just turn into like a plastic belt that kind of wraps around them to keep them in place. So for me, I thought the way they used the finger, which ties her into the anime that she's from, is a really, once again, a brilliant concept. So the pose, definitely on the sexy provocative side, but I think it works. Definitely nice, especially with the finger. I mean, it really gives her that model on a sports car type of look and feel to it. And even though she's kind of crunched up like that, this figure is actually around 4.5 inches tall, maybe slightly taller. So this is definitely unique, and which is one of the reasons why I was initially gonna sell this, and this video was gonna be a review to sale video, but I decided to keep it. It is one of my favorites in my collection. Unfortunately, I'm not able to let it go yet. Probably put it back in my glass shelf. So the design, I'm going to give it a perfect 10 out of 10 score. Next category is sculpting, which basically covers the execution of the 3D art. And unfortunately, I don't have there is no 2D art, so I don't know if it's just translated well or things like that. But even without it, you can see how the sculpting is really well done. And it's not always the sculptor's fault, and not it could be multiple sculptors, but usually it would be some kind of toy designer that sculpts it. Sometimes it could be the molding or the casting's fault when you see little errors, but this one is pretty much perfect. You can see details from hair. They kind of simplified it. So there's no strands or anything like that you see, but from right there on the side of her face, it's a bit well not done. Ears, a lot of details. face, nose, perfectly proportioned for what it looks. I mean, she looks better in this than she does in the anime, just because the anime is so old. It might be controversial, but even on her anime, she had Go Nagai drew nipple embellishments on her. And this is actually sculpted. It's not just painted, but it's actually sculpted. If I could get it, there it is. The watch, a lot of details sculpted. Even just the gloves. Fingers, well proportioned. Scarf, a lot of details. You can see, you know, just has a natural look to it with all those wrinkles. And speaking of wrinkles, you can see the wrinkles and how her costume gets bunched up in those ankles, like her waist right there, legs, knees, boots. Once again, she has another watch right there, and here we go. Believe it or not, there's like these indentations or grooves on her butt for her fingers to go in, fingertips to fit. The only one that doesn't precisely rest on the dot is the middle finger. You can kind of see a little indentation there. But I thought this was a brilliant design and sculpting work, because it hand fits perfectly and it gives the effect like she's squeezing her butt. I never really seen that before. Like, there's no statues or figures. It kind of has that concept. So that's pretty cool. But the thing is, it rests well, like perfectly there. There's no gap. There's no, you know. So the design and the sculpting, they just made it really nice. I mean, these come in separate pieces. The arm would be detached, but where they design the line and the seam lines are, and where it detaches and attaches, I mean, they placed it in really smart areas. So you can see right there, from the red to the white, that would be where it would separate. So it's like they use that as the seam line, which is why you get these perfect lines, and it's not just one piece. They're just painting, which end up with squiggly lines and stuff. So due to that, the detail, I was gonna give it a perfect score, but when you look really close, and this isn't the sculptor's problem or anything like that, it's probably the molding or the casting, you could see a little indented circle right there on the side of her hair, and you could see these indented lines there, and it looks a little bit like a bump. Yeah, that's not part of her costume or extra details. So it's still smooth. You can see from this angle, it's flat, it's smooth, so it's not a huge problem, and I can only notice it when I'm looking at it very close up like this. So once again, everything looks well proportioned, body parts nicely curved, even the boobs right there, and give it up to the Japanese. They make they try to get the female anatomy perfectly accurate. I mean, once again, the butt right there on the buttocks, perfectly round sculpted buttocks. You can see the little details on her costume right there. Has some indented lines. Looks like kind of like her bikini line or panty line. Although it's indenting in, so it could be just part of her costume details. But still, just to add that's very subtle but highly detailed. Really gives it a high quality feel to it. So on the sculpting, initially I was going to give it a 10. But once again, with those two minor mistakes, the one on the head, and then, you know, the one right there on the arm. Because once again, if you look at the other arm, there's no symmetry. Like, it's like perfectly smooth, her left arm is. So that's definitely a minor mistake on the manufacturer side. So I'm going to give the sculpting a 9 out of 10. The next category is painting. They got painting perfectly right on this, at least color wise. Just like the anime, I mean from her headband. Nice straight lines. And the fact that a lot of these come in separate parts really help. Initially, I couldn't really find much or at all any mistakes. Now, that angle, which is difficult for anyone to paint, is a little bit, well, it's not perfect. It's decent, especially when you look from afar. You can't really tell, but it is what it is, and yeah, it does slightly go over the border. So other than that, the only other mistake I've seen is right here on the bottom of her belt. You could see some white overlapping where the black should be. So that is kind of a hit. Other than that, gloves look great. I mean, they even right here on the top angle, it's a tough area. And yes, there's slightly white on the what should be the black part of the glove. But for what it is and the size that this is, I think it's still great. And when you look closely and even off the reflection, you can see how the light reflects off her white, red, and black part of the costume. Has a nice gloss finish all the way around. And that's why when you look at her butt, you can see how the light reflects off her perfectly round buttocks. So yeah, as I move, you can see the light angle reflecting the belt. The belt has a nice little shine right there. See how it... So now when you look at other parts, like her hair, her face, even the scarf, and the robot finger, it's matte finish. So the gloss really makes it stand out. And the fact that they combine matte finish and gloss finish really puts a high quality to it. As you can see, even on the finger, the red part is matte, and then the blue part is gloss. So you can see how the glossy part kind of shines more. So very nice effect on the painting. Very little mistake, if any, but it is what it is. And initially, just like sculpting, I was going to give it a perfect 10 out of 10. But because it's not perfect, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on the painting. And if I did 0.5 scale systems, I would definitely give 9.5 on both sculpting and painting. Now the next category is value. Value, as you can see right back in the box, actually says 630 yen when this came out. And of course back then that would have been a little bit over $6 or so. Right now the exchange has been more equalized, so 100 yen is about $1. So if this came out right now, that should be around like $6.30, maybe a little more, like 60 cents. But when I bought this was around like, I don't think it was $5.99. It possibly might have been. It was definitely under $9.99. But I think to be safe, it was around $6.99. But either way, that is very cheap and good price for such a high quality figure like this, at least in my opinion. Now value is also about the aftermarket value, supply and demand. Of course, this is a character that's really not that well known, especially here in the States. She is definitely one of, I can't really say iconic, but due to her history, the fact that she came out from something really old, she does have a bit of that iconic status. Maybe not like Yumi Sayaka, but she's definitely up there. And when I checked this before I made this video on eBay, there were a couple listings. The lowest I've seen, it says new, but at least in the pictures and stuff, it didn't look new. And this would be a Gashapon, a mystery box. So basically, you would have to have an open box to know what figure you're getting. Although they do have it in a sealed, factory sealed plastic bag. So I don't know if the seller has it like that and they just have the pictures of an open one. Either way, one thing I did see something suspicious was that, as you can see here, she's supported by one thing that's completely attached to the finger right there. It sticks in there to the hole, and the back part just kind of sits there on top of that, if it ever needs to, I guess, because it really does hold itself on with the thing. Now the funny thing I saw, at least the one that was being sold from eBay, that was also being shipped from Hong Kong, which is kind of a red light, was that there was only one pole and it was in the middle that supported her, and it was actually like the pole was like twice the height, so she was probably like elevated maybe like 3 to 4 inches off the ground. So I thought that was a bit fishy. Now I don't know if they made different variations of this, but I'm gonna assume no, and it's just one of those fakes, counterfeits, clones, whatever you want to call it. So do be careful. I did see another one, which was also from Hong Kong, that was being sold for around $30. So definitely real or fake, that is pretty good aftermarket itself. It's not the best. I've seen Gashapons, really rare and good Gashapons, go close to $100, like a Ghost in the Shell one or something like that. So the value's still good. It's not the best. So I'm still gonna give it a high score, an 8 out of 10. And I know something like this is gonna continue go up in value. Maybe not skyrocket, but just something subtle in value. And who knows, maybe 5-10 years from now, this will be more on the $40 to $50 range. So I'll definitely keep in track of that. And the last category is overall. This was definitely one of the figures that I've reviewed with a higher average score. Again, initially I was gonna give it a 10 on sculpting and painting, because initially it just looks perfect, but after really looking up close, I just gotta be honest and hey, if it's not a perfect figure, then I can't really give it a perfect score. So I'm gonna give the overall, while accounting for all the other scores, an 8. Actually, a 9 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. And initially, that is the overall score I was gonna give, and I did kind of bring it down to 8, but just to those minor mistakes and the slight, value score still high itself, because the value's up there. It's rare due to that. Even though the supply isn't, or the demand isn't that, high, the supply is very low from what I've known or I've seen so far. And it is pretty old. So that actually adds to it. So, and this is something where you could display in many different angles. It looks great, it's unique, and after a while when I look at it again, it's almost like, wow, there's nothing like it. So I kind of end up liking it again. So once again, I'm gonna give the overall score a 9. To recap: design, 10 out of 10. Sculpting, 9 out of 10. Painting, 9 out of 10. Value, 8 out of 10. And overall, 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Don't worship toys, worship God.